Welcome to Primal Girl Wellness and Down to Earth Astrology. This is Miss Jenny, and I am an astrologer. So I am just popping in because we have a fantastic opportunity to see astrology live and in action as a sociology experiment. So today we're going to talk about Pluto, Scorpio, and the things that drive people to do the things that they do. It's not always as simple and neat as we'd like it to be. So I have just learned, to my chagrin, and not so much surprised now that I think about it, that Mr. Bryan Kohberger, who is the accused, not charged, suspected murderer of these 4 college students in Idaho. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this case, you can look up the Idaho 4 on Google and you'll find the case. And Mr. Kohberger, astrologically, is exceptional and worth studying because, one, it's happening as we speak. The other is that he's got a huge stellium in Scorpio, Sun, Jupiter, Pluto, and I think Mercury. But he's a Scorpio baby. Whew. So he's a great opportunity to talk about Pluto and Scorpio. So the first thing, when we talk about Scorpio versus Pluto, there's a couple of differences you guys want to keep in mind when you're looking at this in charts. Scorpios, the sign Scorpio, people have a heavy emphasis of planets in the sign Scorpio, will have a scorpionic expression, right? It's the wardrobe that you wear. The signs are the wardrobe that you wear. So if you had Capricorn, heavy Capricorn emphasis by sign, we would expect that you would express yourself in classic Capricornian fashion, very understated, very authoritative, respectful, traditional, conservative clothing and behavior and all the, proper manners, all sort of stuff, which is a little bit different from Saturn. Now, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, but Saturn's going to give you much more inherent restraint. So the difference between playing a part or looking a part and being a part, right? So there's a difference between looking like you're working and actually working. You know what I'm talking about. And it's the same thing like if you had Aries, planets in Aries, very emphasized, you'd have this Aries expression in your personality, very fiery and kind of in your face, all sorts of stuff, but that's not the same thing as Mars. Okay, so an Aries personality is definitely the life of the party, right? And they're very gung-ho, do it sort of stuff, spirited, feisty. But Mars is aggressive, it's bold, it's in your face, it's confrontational. Mars doesn't back down from anybody because it's Mars. It's that Martian energy. So the difference again is looking the part versus being the part. Okay, so with Bryan, we had a little bit of both going on here. So when we talk about the Scorpio expression in Bryan Kohberger or Kohberger's chart, some of the things that we can expect. Now, this is difficult because we don't actually know him personally. And right now, everybody's so busy trying to grab their 15 minutes of fame that they're saying anything. Didn't know the man for nothing for years. Now, suddenly you were his best friend and know everything, right? So the expression of the Scorpio personality has a lot to do with being more reserved, not really a big extrovert, more of an introvert, dark and mysterious sort of stuff. And also being more than a little calculating and suspicious and always kind of keeping one eye on everybody until they've been tested. Are these people really who they say they are? So all that sort of stuff. So and of course, the whole Scorpio modern mythology, we get, Scorpio, so to speak, oozing sex symbol, right? Which, we can attribute to Pluto and Scorpio, which we can attribute to Pluto. But that's different from Pluto, and what I'm seeing a lot right now, and specifically about what I'm about to mention, is classically Plutonic. And what that means is that you can have Pluto in any sign, but when that Pluto in any sign is dominant or dominating across the chart, really they're active and present, it brings its own special set of problems that are consistent with all Plutonians. Bryan just happens to have Scorpio and Pluto both dominant and visible in the chart together, which it's like a double indemnity here. Okay, so here's the thing. I just watched a video. This made me laugh. That apparently on Reddit, there are people who have a fan base for Bryan has his own fan club now. And it's lovelorn, people who are sexually like excited by his image and the things. It's apparently there's an entire Reddit thread about people who want to have intimate relationships with Bryan and literally spend all their time talking to each other about what makes him so damn attractive to them. And, I wonder if he's kinky and he looks like a dom, also, oh my God, wow. And listen, we know he is an accused, and not a convicted, but an accused murderer. So even having a fan club, because you're so sexy, not because you're a murderer, but because you're sexy. Like somehow this all just seems very weird. But also don't forget, it wasn't but a few years ago that we had an ex-con. He was a light-skinned black guy with these gray or blue eyes, whose mugshot made him famous. And he even hooked up with an heiress, a wealthy heiress at one point, because he was so damn good looking or photogenic, take your pick. And he was a convicted felon or criminal. He was a convicted criminal. We had a mugshot. That's what made him viral online. And that's how he ended up with a wealthy heiress at one point afterwards, right? And these are all, like him and like Bryan, these are all hormone responses. These are literally the biological clock looking at somebody and going, ooh, I like those genes of yours. I'd like to have a few for myself. So the thing about it is, when it comes to really attractive people, and remember, what we find attractive in women is not the same thing as what we find attractive in men. When it comes to really attractive people, there's a biological response that overrides all common sense and thinking. And before you argue with me, I want you to think about everyone you know that's young, that has got involved with somebody who is absolute poison for them because they were good looking, or even older. I've seen, I hate to say it, but I have seen middle-aged women just practically lose their homes trying to entertain and keep the company of what they consider. I didn't think they were attractive, but they thought they were attractive. Men who are also middle-aged, because they were so damn sexy. So hormones and this whole thing about attractive people and what that represents to us has a huge pull and influence. This is why literally you can be very, very attractive and have the character of a slime ball, or you can have all the intelligence of a snail, and people will still clamor to take care of you, sidle up to you, be your best friend, give you anything you want. There are things in this world that are particularly advantageous when you've got nothing else to work with, and being really good looking is on that list. Sadly, I, like a lot of other people, did not get that particular hand to play in life. So I got to rely on personality and intellect. And so far, I really need to work on the personality, apparently, because nobody's rushing over to take care of me. So the guy who did this video, and I'm on the fence about putting the link to his video below. I want to give him credit for it, because I wouldn't have known about this otherwise. But at the same time, people who throw around words like traditional values and good and evil, this is a very simplistic term. And some of the other things he's saying show a very limited understanding of the world around him and sociology. So I'm a little leery of perpetuating that. But you guys are smart and grown up people. I'm sure you can figure it out on your own. So you either share all of his views or you don't. But I'm just saying I don't, which is why I'm all on the fence about whether I'm going to post a link. So not only are these people men, we're assuming they're all women, but they could be men too. All of these people on Reddit, it's on Reddit, there's this thread, going on and on and on about how sexy Bryan Kohberger is, and how much they want to, get next to him. Ooh, baby. Ooh, daddy. Right? But they also apparently have also started a donation funding for him. So they're, you can't make this up. Literally, have a group where you can donate money to send to his bank account in prison, so he has money to buy, goods with, toiletries and stuff. So the thing about it is with Jupiter and Scorpio, because he has Jupiter and Scorpio, with Jupiter and Scorpio, what you're going to get a lot of is a lot of support from other people, and largely because of your sex appeal. I knew a guy once. His name was Barney. Barney was not a classically handsome man. Like Bryan Kohberger, he's not a classically handsome man. He's not a pretty boy. But Barney had this Svengali effect on women. I literally, 8 to 80, it didn't matter how old a woman was, he had this hypnotic effect on women that just made them want to protect him and take care of him and support whatever he needed. I'm not kidding you. I watched this. You can't, if you've ever seen anybody under some kind of charismatic hypnotic spell, right? Like cult leaders have this over their followers. That's the kind of impact and influence he had on people. And he had Jupiter and Scorpio. And Bryan also has Jupiter and Scorpio as well. But Bryan's not trying to do like this whole Svengali thing, right? He's not trying to be the next Charles Manson. These people are doing this literally on their own, of their own volition. And of course, the guy who does the videos losing his damn mind. I can't even get a super thanks. And here, this guy's got people sending him money in prison, which I totally get. I totally get. I'm on here doing the best I can, the best astrology I know how to do, and literally pumpkins with, makeup. Like literally, there's nothing in there except pumpkin pulp and pumpkin seeds and a whole lot of hot air and gas, doing amazing on YouTube with lots of followers. And I'm sure they're being subsidized by advertisers and stuff. And here I am doing the best I can. But again, I didn't get the good hand for good looks. I got smarts and personality, and I guess apparently my personality needs some work too. But to be honest, I'm a woman, so I need a lot more looks. They don't actually even care about your personality as long as you look good. But Bryan Kohberger is a man. And like the Barney that I knew of yore, and lots of other people, he's not classically handsome, but he's got sex appeal. So that Jupiter and Scorpio in his chart is kicking in now because people are supporting or subsidizing him. That's that Jupiter, and Jupiter and Scorpio gets you support and resources from other people, and lots of it. So if you were a woman, he would either be very well heeled and more into a good affluent family, or he would have been very, very well subsidized by a spouse. Just saying. So that's Jupiter and Scorpio in action that we're watching with all of this. Now the Pluto and Scorpio, and this is where I wanted to go with this. Pluto and Scorpio, Pluto anywhere in a chart, not just Scorpio. Scorpio just underlines it, right? Pluto, strong and dominant in a chart anywhere, means that you become a projection screen. So literally, when people look at you, and so this is important to know, if you carry Pluto strong and dominant in your chart, you will have experienced this, and you may not have understood what was happening. If you don't carry this in your chart, trust me, you don't want this. So what happens is when people look at you, they don't see you. They see a projection screen for all their fantasies of things that they can't own or claim within themselves, right? So all these people who went, whipped up to a frenzy, literally within the first 24 hours. Oh my God, he's clearly the murderer. Ah! All these ridiculous things like, well, that's, look the way his eyes are, the way he stares and blah, blah, blah. So sinister. Clearly he's a serial killer. All of this is projection because we literally knew nothing about this guy except that he is who Idaho PD randomly picked up at the last minute before semesters changed. Timing is everything in life. But we knew nothing about him. And even with information coming out, what you would hear a lot of are people twisting information to justify or rationalize or support their fantasies about who this character is. When you're very young and you're in very closed environments like small towns, high school, college, little small closed environments, what this comes across as is gossip. So if you've ever been that person that people have just spontaneously erupted into some kind of bizarre gossip thing about you that had nothing to do with anything you actually did, all right? And people were, and it's important, people were all too happy to believe it. That's Pluto. You are literally a giant projection screen for other people's crap. And it doesn't go away. The older you get, it doesn't go away. What happens is you become a lot more familiar with how this game is played and the personalities and mentalities that you're dealing with that start this nonsense. Because it's always about a power play, right? And that's the other thing with Pluto. You're always going to find yourself in some type of adversarial conflict or power play with other people, like the queen bees of a group, authority figures, police officers, the judge, the local community, bureaucratic heads, like whoever the leadership is, you're always going to inexplicably find yourself drawn into power plays and conflicts with them. And it's not because you're looking for it. A lot of times what happens is your very presence makes people uncomfortable. Bryan Kohberger, just being who he is and breathing, saying nothing, doing nothing, just breathing in a room makes some people uncomfortable. And instead of assessing themselves to figure out what the problem is, they will irrationally respond to this and then overreact, right? Jump to conclusions and overreact because they're projecting all their crap onto him. And all he's doing is sitting and breathing. That is a very Plutonian experience. One of the things that you're going to learn in this lifetime, if you have strong or dominant Pluto, is about power, the use and misuse of it, often being on one extreme or the other in this lifetime, depending on your karma. But always bearing witness to the experience of power when it's not being used correctly, right? And when it is being used correctly, but oftentimes it's going to be you that has to rise to the challenge and show how to exert, and meet, actions and decisions with the power that you have. And what happens though is you don't see it in yourself. Oftentimes you can feel powerless in life, because Pluto's about power and you're learning some deep, deep lessons about power. So you may find yourself often and frequently in your lifetime feeling powerless, right? And feeling like everybody's out to get you and nobody understands you. And why is everybody acting like this? And why is it every time I walk into a room, there's always somebody who's like trying to like shoulder up against me like I've done something and I literally don't know them from Adam and I just walked in the damn room. Why is the cop who pulled me over for going 2 miles over the speed limit now writing me a $3,000 ticket and threatening to take me to jail in handcuffs? The hell just happened? What just happened, my friend, is your Pluto. People recognize and feel these planetary vibrations from other people. This is why some people you'll look at and you just won't like them on sight. You won't like, I just don't like that person. Oftentimes because there's adverse or difficult Saturn aspects or Mars aspects between the charts, or Sun aspects. But those vibrations of the planets we're feeling from other people all the time. When we have good rapport with people, it's because we've got good planetary connections between us. When there's difficult or conflict-ridden aspects between our charts, we're going to feel that before we even know what their chart is. With Pluto's a very, very special case because you are an antenna for transmission for greater forces than yourself. Remember, all of your outer planets are about things that are beyond your personal expression. This is no longer about you. This is about what you symbolize or represent to other people. It has nothing to do with you. And that's the really unfortunate part, right? Because other people decide what you symbolize or represent. You have no say in the matter. Literally talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the right place at the right time, depending on how your Pluto things go. So with Bryan, think about that for a second. If Pluto, strong dominant Pluto in a chart, and he's got it in spades, strong dominant Pluto in a chart, if that represents the experiences of one, power, the use and misuse and abuse of power, right? If it also comes with the experience of being a projection screen, right? Where people project all their subconscious and unconscious and internalized crap onto you, right? Up to and including their, hidden erotic desires. Right? And you're not going to get much more unconscious than that because a lot of people's sexual fantasies are driven by unconscious neurotics, which is a whole other conversation. But like erotic fantasies never make sense to anybody else. They don't even make sense to the person who's having them, but they're there. Some of them are more weird than others, and they always have deep, deep roots into the unconscious of the person. There's things going on there that are too long for this video. But Pluto becomes projection screen for all of that. Right? So if I've got something about, dominant, controlling men, and I'm looking at Bryan Kohberger with that strong, dominant Pluto in his chart, doubly emphasized with all that Scorpio, I'm absolutely going to look at him and blat, all my secret erotic daydreams and fantasies about having a strong, dominant man in my life. It's very controlling. I'm literally going to see in him whether it's or not. For all we know, on a personal level, the guy might be the most passive dead fish ever. Like he may have difficulty just, controlling the spaghetti twirl on his plate when he's eating. We don't know. We don't know because we don't date him. But there are plenty of people who are assigning that to him instantly and with relish, that they've got an entire red thread about this because of all that Pluto. If you're a woman, because of the world we live in, it tends to take an uglier tone. But if you're a woman with strong dominant Pluto, you're going to get the same thing, where people speak inappropriate, men in particular, speak inappropriately to you, especially at young ages, and it doesn't stop. So we've all, well, most of us have had this experience of dealing with inappropriate grown men talking to us like they should not be when we were young. But the difference is, with strongly Plutonian women, this can be as extreme and severe, because remember, we're talking about use, abuse, and misuse of power. This can be something as extreme as sexual molestation and rape, okay, when you're very young, or older, up to just constantly sexualized and inappropriate behavior from other people, from men, in the forms of conversations and innuendos and jokes and comments that they shouldn't be saying at all. Right? Just like, where the hell did that come from? You could literally be dressed like a nun and they're still going to do this to you. Or it could be from women who see you as some type of sexual threat because they're projecting their fears on you and has nothing to do with you. Like, literally, you have zero interest in their man, but boy, they're acting like any second you're going to walk off with him. Right? Yeah, I've got strong Pluto. I can tell you all about some Pluto experiences. It's not fun. It's not fun. So, back to Bryan Kohberger. So when you look at people who have strong Pluto in their charts, this is the kind of thing you're going to see over and over and over again. You got to remember that, because people will project their nonsense onto them because they become a giant projection screen. Now, here's what's interesting. Pluto is different from Neptune. Now, Neptune has the same effect. Now, we typically think of Neptune as the mirage, okay, you know, the illusions, because Neptune rules cinema, film, stories, Hollywood, you know, the grand illusion. That is absolutely Neptune. The difference is, with Neptune strong, and especially with Neptune on the angles, because I have a girlfriend who's Neptune on the midheaven. I've seen this with her as well, and she's quite the con. It is a softer, less sinister projection. So people will often view you with Neptune as much more harmless and fragile and vulnerable, you know, and delicate, so tender, than you actually are. In some cases, they may even see you as this, you know, this godly saint with a halo around your head. I've literally seen this in action. So with Pluto, angular or dominant, you're going to get people who become a projection screen for all the deep, dirty crap in people's heads, whether it's their fears, you know, their issues of ego and importance, because Pluto decimates the ego, right? So when you've got a Plutonian walking around, there's this unconscious resonance with something that's a threat to your ego. People don't like that. They do not like that. And you don't have to do anything except stand there and breathe. You don't have to say a word, don't have to do anything. Just literally stand there and breathe and think puppies and kittens and rainbows all day long. But because that Pluto is strong and dominant in your chart, people are responding to that Plutonian energy. Okay? So that's what you get with Pluto. It's hyper-sexualized, you know, erotic fantasies, like this constant conflict and power play, right? And this need to like put you in your place when you haven't done anything, right? Because they're projecting their crap on you. With Neptune, it's much more softer, right? People buy into this fantasy that they're projecting onto you, that you are more delicate, more fragile, more vulnerable, you know, more, you know, kind-hearted than you actually are. So here's the thing. Neptune makes excellent con artists. Excellent con artists. Not because they're so good at manipulating, but because people are so quick to project this stuff onto the Neptune person and buy into this con, right? Because who's more easily going to take advantage of you? Somebody who comes across as, you know, delicate and helpless and frail and could never hurt a fly, or the person who, you know, looks like they've got the cloak and dagger kind of thing, right? Obviously, the Neptune person, you know, fragile, you know, delicate, trustworthy. Who would they ever? They would never, right? The minute you catch yourself saying they would never, they probably would. So Neptune people, Neptune dominant people, have the unique ability to be better con artists, not because they're so amazing at what they do, but because their efforts are made easier and facilitated by other people buying into their, you know, fantastical image of themselves as being harmless and so genteel and, well, I would never. I mean, this isn't to say that all Neptune dominant people are con artists, but it is to say Just like pretty people, right? Really attractive people, like you got to stop and get away from what you're seeing for a moment and really think, like listen and watch what they're doing, not what they look like. Because we tend to buy into all sorts of fallacies and fantasies just because of how something looks and what that represents to us. And with Pluto people, of course, they raise everybody's insecurities and hackles and puts them on the guard because, kind of thing, which makes life incredibly difficult for the Pluto person. So don't be one of those people. So if you hear people, you'll hear some amateur astrologers, and there's a lot of it now because the internet is an echo chamber, talking about how Pluto is so criminal and, it's a evil and, it's a mastermind and so sadistic and rapey and, oh my God, the garbage I listen to online. Don't believe the hype. That's not even close to it. So one of the things you may find of a strong or dominant Pluto in a chart, or Pluto deeply or intimately connected to, tightly connected to other planets on the chart, you may find someone who is drawn to things that belong in counterculture, which would be the criminal world, right? The underground, the black market, all the things that are going on and happening below the radar. The reason for that is multifold. One, because people are so constantly projecting their crap onto this person, that may be the only place they can go where they're treated like normal people. Have you thought about that? The second is because of their life circumstances, this may be the only and best opportunity they have to actually do things and excel at them with support. So because Pluto is the transmission of power, Pluto is the antenna or the lightning rod that absorbs that power and expresses it into the world, because it's no longer about you, it's about what you represent. So strongly Plutonian people may feel more comfortable in environments where they're also surrounded by other Plutonian people, because they're not behaving nearly as weird and unsettling and oppositional to the Pluto person. Okay? People who understand each other tend to leave each other alone. So that may be what that's about. It's not because Pluto automatically makes you de facto a rapist or a criminal or, an anarchist or a lone wolf or any of that. There's a lot more going on with Pluto. There's a lot to deep unconscious and subconscious processes, and in the world around us has more to do with how other people project their nonsense onto that person, which is worth looking at by itself, which is why I say watch Bryan Kohberger and people's reactions to it. Go back and look at the beginning of the case on this wave of prejudice and angry bias before, like 24 hours in, we hadn't even started an investigation, and it's like, oh yeah, he's clearly it, because they didn't like the way he looked. There's something about that guy. Well, yeah, that something's all that Pluto and Scorpio. It's not because he's guilty, right? So, he could be. We don't know. We'll find out. But, that's, if he's not guilty, then yeah, this is all Pluto stuff, Pluto Scorpio stuff. And the whole Plutonian sex appeal, and why are these men and women like, oh, Bryan Kohberger is so sexy. I want to have his baby. It's two things. One, it's Pluto, so it's the repository of people's projections. You're a projection screen for other people's nonsense, which includes all their deep, unconscious or hidden, erotic fantasies. I'm just saying. And the other thing is, he is a non-traditionally good-looking guy. Listen, you can hate him all you want, but you got to give it to him. He's got a good cut of the jib there, as far as masculine appearance goes. Because typically with men, when it comes to being considered handsome, you either have to be like a Ken doll, like very Joe All-American, clean cut, kind of perfect face, clean shaven, all sort of stuff, or you got to be the rough guy, right? The thug life, tough guy kind of thing. And Bryan has that very masculine, and masculinization is not an attractive thing as a rule. But with just the right amounts, it makes the person very sexy, not attractive, in a masculine way. And he's got that going on. And again, look at the people you've known through your life who have gotten involved with, wow, really? And you still stay with them? You still stay with her? Because they're good looking. Literally, they can't see past their gonads, because your gonads want what is physically attractive, because it wants those genes, right? Your head and your heart and your common sense wants a decent person, but your gonads, that wants the good looking one. So I thought that was interesting. I may or may not put the guy's link below in the description box at some point. I'm still sitting on this. I don't know how I feel about this. But I wanted to share that with you about Pluto and Scorpio and Neptune and Bryan Kohberger, because I thought this was, this thing about the Reddit thread and the people sending him money in jail just had me rolling. So classically Pluto and Jupiter and Scorpio. Oh my gosh. So there's your little mini lesson in astrology about Pluto and Scorpio. And we'll talk to you soon, as these things come up. So hang in there.